Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the storylines as we head into this national championship one. Let's be honest, the biggest one you're going to hear is Marcus Freeman playing his former team. Was an incredible player for that team in 2006 to 2008. We finally found it. But let's get into the second segment here, and we got position battles all across the board, and there are some really hard ones to pick in here. There are some very, very easy ones to pick in here, and let's go ahead and jump into this thing because we got a lot to get to. But let's jump in, and the biggest one, obviously, is quarterback. And I do lean Ohio State in this scenario. I think Will Howard has the slight edge at the quarterback position over Riley Leonard. Both these guys are very, very talented. Both these guys can make tons of plays. There's no doubt about that. The only difference to me is I think Will Howard has that little bit more of the ability to push the ball downfield into tight windows more than Riley Leonard does. And that's just something that I think is going to be a little bit more important in this game. You have two front sevens that are absolute nightmares to deal with offensive lines that are downright sketchy as we head into this thing, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But overall, I lean Will Howard. I think they're both incredible quarterbacks. Both have played really good football throughout the CFP. I just think when I look at these two teams, I think Will Howard's going to have more answers for what Notre Dame can throw at them than probably Riley Leonard will have for Ohio State. But very, very close. Two guys that I think have played just remarkably good football, and to be honest, wouldn't be surprised at all if Riley Leonard outplayed Will Howard and won this game. But I do think I'll give the edge to Will Howard here. I think the passing ability downfield has been incredible throughout this tournament and gives him the slight edge in this one. Running back. This one's tough. I'll be totally honest with you, and I'll be totally honest that I don't really know. I think one of the big-time reasons that I went Ohio State's direction here is Jeremiah Love. I don't know if he's going to be fully healthy going into this game. If he is fully healthy, he's one of the very best players in this game, and it is a outright even battle when you talk about running backs. But I can't say that with confidence, so I got to go with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. I think those two guys have played incredibly good football. Judkins had a vicious block in that Texas game that shows you the edge that he plays with, and then Travion Henderson, just that guy that's going to make those big time plays. You know, you do not want to let him get out in space because it is a special player. There's no doubt about that. I'll talk about my draft rankings probably in a little bit here, but this guy might be my running back too. He is an absolute monster and is a guy that I very much like going into the draft. Obviously has had different moments where it hasn't worked quite as well throughout his career, but really, really talented player. So I'll lean Judkins and Henderson over Price and Love, but these are maybe the two best running back duos, two of the three. I won't leave Katron Allen and Nick Singleton out of this conversation, but remarkable running back duos, and I think Ohio State has the very, very slight edge in this one. Ohio State has the very big edge in this one. Let's just be totally honest. This was the easiest one of the bunch. No disrespect to the Notre Dame group because I do like what Jordan Faison is doing. I think Jaden Greathouse is a downright star in a couple of years, but the group for Ohio State is downright different in every sense of the word. It might be the best group in the country, and it starts with that guy right there. Jeremiah Smith has been absolutely incredible this year. Meke Igbuka, Carnell Tate, Brendan Ennis, if you want to add him in there for fun. They have so many guys that are going to pop up in big-time moments. All three of those guys have made big-time plays in the last 3 games, and I think they have a very comfortable edge in this respect. Now, I do think Jaden Greathouse is a guy that kind of can even the scales physicality-wise with these Ohio State corners, so that's something to watch. But overall, very, very it's impossible to beat this Ohio State wide receiver group. You know, we could do this argument for Texas, Ohio State last week. I probably would have leaned Ohio State. That would have been very, very close, but at the end of the day, Ohio State, I think, has the best wide receiver room in the country, and a huge reason for that is number 4. But there's another easy one, very, very easy one. It was the tight end, and it's Mitchell Evans is an absolute difference maker in every sense of the word. Very good inline blocker, obviously a guy you can put out in the slot and make some plays in the pass game. G. Scott is great, and he's a fantastic player and is a huge player for that Ohio State team, as he showed in that Texas game. But Mitchell Evans is one of the top 5 tight ends in the country, definitely a guy that can make a big-time effect in, as we just talked about, with the gap that is there with the wide receiver department. You got to make sure you make plays. You got to make sure you take advantage of these linebackers like Sonny Styles, like Cody Simon, and some very, very talented guys. But Gunnar Helm was able to find some openings, and Mitchell Evans will absolutely have to find openings in this game, no doubt about that. This is the really tough one, and the one that I'm regretting just a little bit. I'll be totally honest with you. But this is a very, very tough one. Anthony Knapp not playing in this game probably made the difference. I think he is an absolute difference maker, even as a freshman, and even as having a guy like Tosh Baker, who's more experienced coming in for him. I can't trust it. He looked good against Penn State. It's not necessarily to bury Tosh Baker or anyone that's going to come in for him, but it is to say there is a drop-off there, and I'm a little bit worried about that. That being said, on the Ohio State side, they've had a little bit of mistakes. The interior of that offensive line did struggle at different moments against Texas, but they've done an incredible job. Donovan Jackson's probably made more money than anyone else in the CFP thus far when you talk about the NFL draft, and the rest of the group has just been really great. I think it's incredibly close, but with the injuries and the time to get ready for those injuries and replace those guys, I'm going to go Ohio State. I think they found a little bit more of a groove as a group, and Notre Dame will be introducing a new group in that national title. So I'll lean towards Ohio State. You can make a very, very good argument for Notre Dame, and frankly, yesterday I was making arguments both directions. I probably wrote down 3 different things before I got to Ohio State. So I'm going to stick with Ohio State here. I think Donovan Jackson really makes the difference for me. D-line, I'm going to go with Ohio State here as well. Now, this one, if you were to split it into interior and edge rushing, I think we could have a better conversation. You have Howard Cross in the middle there. You have a lot of guys in the middle, that Donovan Hinnish that can make a number of plays for Notre Dame. So maybe I would have given the lean to Notre Dame when you talk about interior defensive line. But when you talk about the quartet, I suppose, of Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Ty Hamilton, and Talik Williams, it's about as good as it gets. Those 4 guys across the front are an absolute nightmare, and then you lose Riley Mills on the other side. You just got to lean Ohio State in this spot. Very, very close. 2 very talented groups. What's going on, Anthony? Nice to see you. But I would lean Ohio State here. Very, very talented group, and one of the groups that you look across the board, you are seeing NFL talent all across that board. Linebacker, I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I've seen a couple of people go with Ohio State here, and I get it. Cody Simon and Sonny Styles have been downright incredible throughout this tournament. 2 guys that are very rangy, very athletic, very smart. But you look at the group that Notre Dame has at linebacker, it is downright incredible. They have Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, Jalen Sneed, Jaden Osbury. All of those guys are going to make big-time plays. So maybe it's not, I think the top-line guys are better on Notre Dame than they are on Ohio State. But you have 4 guys that are going to make big-time plays pretty much every single game. You have 4 guys that are going to be in the right spot and make some really, really impactful plays throughout this game. So while I love Cody Simon and Sonny Styles, and this is a very, very tough battle, I think you look at the depth at that linebacker position for Notre Dame, and it's really, really hard to deny that they are the team that I'd give the slight advantage to in this spot. Corner was a really tough one, guys. It's another one that I could not get a beat on, but again, an injury is the difference here. I think Benjamin Morrison, if he was on that cornerback group for Notre Dame, I'd fully go that direction, but he's not. I think Denzel Burke is the best cornerback in this thing. I think he is a guy that can make all the difference in the world, and while Notre Dame has been downright elite on the outside, I think Ohio State has that little bit more of depth, especially with that Benjamin Morrison injury, than Notre Dame has. So looking beyond Davison Igbinosun and Denzel Burke, you have Jermaine Matthews, you have Lorenzo Styles, you have so many different guys that can make some plays and really step in big-time moments at those corner positions. Now, on the other side, you got Christian Gray, you got Leonard Moore, you got a ton of guys. Jordan Clark has played incredible football, so it's really not to say that there is a massive gap here or anything like that. I think this is probably as razor thin as you're going to find in the entire position battle for this game, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the guys that fly downhill. I'm going to go with the guys I trust I don't even want to say that. It is remarkably close. Frankly, I probably should have put a push here. These 2 groups are absolutely incredible, and Anthony, you said DB position. I could very easily make the argument that Notre Dame has the advantage here. So I really kind of went back and forth on this one. Love Christian Gray, love Leonard Moore, love what they've been able to do. I'm going to go with the star power over at Ohio State by a remarkably small margin. I'm going to go with Ohio State here. I'm also going to go with Ohio State here. So, Anthony, I do kind of disagree with you with the DB position, but overall, when I look at this safety group, it is not about the top-line guys, because Caleb Downs, Xavier Watts, take your pick. They're absolutely incredible top to bottom, but Lathan Ransom, Jordan Hancock. Those are the guys that are going to make all the types of difference in this game, and I think they're guys that play about as good at football as you could possibly imagine. You know, if Caleb Downs wasn't on this team, we'd be talking about Lathan Ransom a whole lot more. I can promise you that. So really, really talented players. Now, you do have Xavier Watts. You have Jalen Schuler. You have CJ Reed on the other side, or CJ Hurd, excuse me, on the other side. So it's not like it's a massive blowout by any means, but I just think Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom is that little bit better. So overall, I think you look at these two defenses, especially when you look in the back end where linebacker, cornerback, and safety. Those are the ones where take your pick. Both groups are absolutely incredible, especially in that back end with cornerbacks and safeties. I think is an absolute toss-up. I'll lean Ohio State because some of the depth pieces that they do have that I feel a little bit more confident in, but at the end of the day, these are remarkable groups, two of the best groups in the country, and it was remarkably hard to make the pick here. And then you have this. I'll be totally honest. Neither of these groups are all that good. Neither of these groups are really going to be ones that are going to downright change this game. Now, Mitchell Jeter has teamed to turn a little bit of a corner, so wanted to give him a little bit of respect here. Definitely thought about going that direction, but Jaden Fielding's been a little bit more reliable from the spot this year. They punted a little bit better at Ohio State, so it's margins, and it's really not great margins for either team, if I'm being totally honest, but these are two teams that are not necessarily going to are going to live with their kickers one way or the other. It's going to be an interesting game, but if it comes down to special teams, there will not be one fan for either of these teams that feel great about their position when that kicker runs out on the field. That's pretty much the end-all be-all here. It's going to be a very interesting battle. I think Mitch Jeter is hitting a little bit of a stride, but those misses early in the season are still a little bit of a worry for me, especially when you get on that national championship stage. So overall, I think these position battles are tough. The quarterback battle is one that I think you could go either direction. I'm going Will Howard. Running back, one you could go either direction. I'm going to go with the Ohio State duo. I think wide receiver, tight end are downright easy, if I'm being totally honest. And then you get into the nightmares. You know, O-line, D-line, linebacker is one that I go Notre Dame. I think a lot of people would go towards Ohio State. And then the DB group, take your pick. They're both absolutely elite in every sense of the word. I'll give the slight lean to Ohio State in both those spots, but man, it's going to be really weird. And Anthony, you might be right. Maybe the special teams has nothing to do with the players. Maybe it has nothing to do with the kicking ability of these players. Maybe it's just the ability to execute that one or two fake punts throughout this game or fake kicks that totally change this one. So it'll be interesting to see, and definitely will have their hands full going into this one, but going to be awesome to watch all of that unfold. Obviously, I could be very wrong about a lot of those. Maybe Xavier Watts makes all the plays in the world and makes me look like an idiot, but at the end of the day, really, really fun groups in this one, and not a lot separating these teams at a lot of these positions. So let's take our second break here, and when we come back, let's just do biggest questions for the teams that have already been eliminated from the CFP. We'll go through Georgia. Do they have their quarterback right now, or is he coming in from somewhere else? Can Boise State and Arizona State replace their running backs, and a ton more? Real quick, I want to make sure I get into. You're absolutely right. They do a remarkable job of just no one's going to hit you over the head. You know, no one's going to fly around the field. No one's going to be the guy that, you know, chases a running back sideline to sideline. They're going to be where they need to be. They're going to fill gaps as well as really anyone in the entire country, and they are going to tackle. You are not going to get away from them very often. So I think that's the kind of their superpower. It's not necessarily beating you over the head with downright talent. It's just being able to diagnose and evaluate plays at a very, very elite level. So that's actually a big reason I went Notre Dame is Jack Kaiser and those guys are so veteran, so smart that I just lean them a little bit over Ohio State's group. But let's take our second break here. When we come back, let's talk about the CFP eliminated teams. Biggest questions for them going into the offseason, because there's quite a few of them around these teams, and Penn State's just got a little bit bigger. And we'll talk about that right after this, so stick with us.